Think of a place where the horizon stretches so far. You wonder if the earth really is round. Imagine mountains that claw at the clouds, valleys so quiet you can hear your own heartbeat, and wildlife roaming like it's still the 1800s. That's Wyoming, a state that feels less like part of modern America and more like a painting hung in some oversized Western saloon. You've seen it in movies. You've read about it in Old West legends. You've probably daydreamed about standing in Yellowstone, watching geysers blast steam into the sky. But here's the twist. Despite its beauty, Wyoming is practically empty of people. Out of all 50 U.S. states, it has the smallest population. That's right. The land of cowboys and wide-open spaces is also the land of crickets. So why is this? Why has Wyoming, with all its natural wonder, stayed a human desert, while other states, some with equally rugged geography, boomed with people and cities? To answer that, we need to roll the clock back. Because Wyoming's story isn't just about empty spaces. It's about opportunities missed, tough geography, and a long history of being the state where growth never quite landed. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand why Wyoming is empty, why it might stay that way, and why that might not be such a bad thing. Here's where things get interesting. Back in the 1800s, Wyoming looked like it had all the ingredients to become a major hub. Railroads cut right through the state. The Union Pacific Railroad reached Cheyenne in 1867, turning it briefly into a bustling town of saloons, merchants, and hopeful settlers. It had the potential to grow into another Denver or Salt Lake City. But here's the kicker. It never did. Denver boomed because of nearby gold and silver mines. Salt Lake City thrived as the religious and cultural center of the Mormon migration. Boise grew thanks to fertile land and trade routes. Wyoming? It had none of those things in abundance. No gold rush to lure tens of thousands, no huge tracts of fertile farmland to support families, no strong cultural magnet pulling people in. Instead, Wyoming leaned on what it had underground: coal, oil, gas, and minerals. That meant its towns grew in fits and starts. When coal was in demand, places like Rock Springs thrived. When oil prices rose, Casper enjoyed a bump. But as soon as prices crashed, jobs disappeared. People packed up, and towns shrank back to small size. This boom and bust cycle defined Wyoming's history. And unlike Denver or Salt Lake City, which evolved into diverse urban economies, Wyoming never built a self-sustaining growth engine. It stayed rural, isolated, and reliant on resources that never guaranteed permanence. That early missed boom created a ripple effect. Without a big city to anchor the state, Wyoming never developed the infrastructure, industry, or cultural gravity that attracts new waves of settlers. It set the stage for everything else we'll talk about. Okay, fast forward to today. Wyoming has fewer than 590,000 people. That's less than Washington, D.C., a city that doesn't even count as a state. Even Vermont, famous for maple syrup and not much else, has more people. To give you a sense of scale, Wyoming's landmass is enormous. Over 251,000 square kilometers. That's bigger than the entire United Kingdom. And yet, the population density is just 2.3 people per square kilometer. The US average? About 37. If you're in Cheyenne, the capital, you'll find about 65,000 people. Casper, the second largest city, has around 61,000. After that, the numbers drop fast. Over half the state's population lives in towns with fewer than 10,000 residents. To put it bluntly, most Wyomingites live in what outsiders would call really small towns. Here's the paradox. Wyoming is surrounded by booming neighbors. Colorado is thriving, Utah is exploding with growth, and even Idaho, long dismissed as flyover country, is attracting newcomers. So why is Wyoming still the wallflower at the population dance? The answer starts with geography. On the surface, Wyoming looks like a dream. Snow-capped mountains, rolling plains, dramatic canyons. But living there? That's another story. Wyoming sits at an average elevation of 6,700 feet, second only to Colorado. More than 3/4 of the state is over a mile high. That sounds impressive until you realize high elevation comes with biting cold, thinner air, and short growing seasons. Farmers learned quickly. You can't grow much when frost lingers into June and returns by September. Then there's the wind. Wyoming isn't just breezy, it's notorious. Imagine walking outside, opening your car door, and having it ripped out of your hand like a kite. That's daily life. Locals joke Wyoming's state bird should be the wind. Water is another problem. Many areas receive less than 200 millimeters of precipitation a year. That's desert territory. Without rivers like the Mississippi or reservoirs like California's, Wyoming has always struggled to support big cities. This combination, high elevation, relentless wind, scarce water, meant settlers often passed through instead of settling down. The Oregon Trail literally cut across Wyoming, but most pioneers kept moving until they reached greener, easier lands further west. Fast forward again. What if geography is tough, but jobs make up for it? Unfortunately, Wyoming's economy has never quite pulled that off. The state relies heavily on energy and natural resource extraction. Coal, oil, natural gas, trona. These industries pay well during boom times. In the early 2000s, for example, Wyoming enjoyed some of the highest median incomes in the region thanks to coal and gas. But here's the trap. When global energy prices fall, Wyoming falls hard. Mining towns shrink, young workers leave, and opportunities dry up. Unlike Utah with its tech industry, or Colorado with its mix of finance, tourism, and aerospace, Wyoming never diversified. This creates what researchers call a brain drain. Many young people grow up in Wyoming, go to college, then leave for better opportunities elsewhere. In fact, more than half of people born in Wyoming no longer live there. That's staggering. So even though Wyoming's median income looks okay on paper, the lack of job diversity makes life unstable. You might land a good-paying job in the oil fields, but what happens when the field closes? That uncertainty pushes people out. Even if jobs weren't an issue, Wyoming's lifestyle challenges turned many away. First, the winters. They're long, snowy, and brutally cold. Add in those famous winds, and it feels like nature itself is telling you to stay indoors. And unlike in Denver or Salt Lake City, where you can still find plenty of indoor entertainment, Wyoming's small towns don't offer much to soften the blow. Second, the distances. Wyoming is so spread out that driving an hour for groceries or healthcare isn't unusual. Want to catch a movie or see a concert? That might require a road trip. Even Cheyenne and Casper, the big cities, can feel more like large towns compared to the urban amenities people expect today. Yes, the cost of living is lower. Housing costs are about 18% below the national average. But the trade-off is isolation. For many, that's simply not worth it. Now, here's a twist most people don't expect. You'd think Wyoming, with all its open skies and clean air, would be pristine. But per person, Wyoming actually emits more carbon dioxide than any other U.S. state. Why? Coal power. Lots of it. In fact, on some winter days, air quality in Wyoming rivals smog-heavy cities like Los Angeles. Add in climate change, and the picture darkens. By 2050, experts predict Wyoming will experience nearly 40 extremely hot days per year, up from just a handful today. Snowpacks will shrink by 10 to 15%, rivers will run drier in summer, and wildfires will become more frequent. For a state already struggling with water and livability, that's a looming crisis. During the pandemic, something curious happened. People fleeing crowded cities looked at Wyoming's wide-open spaces and thought, perfect. Remote work meant you could live anywhere, so why not somewhere beautiful and cheap? For a brief moment, Wyoming's population ticked upward. Jackson Hole in particular saw a flood of wealthy remote workers and second-home buyers. But by 2023, that trend slowed dramatically. The realities, long winters, limited jobs, isolation, hit newcomers just like they hit everyone else. Some counties gained a few hundred residents, but many rural areas continued to lose people. The overall effect? Wyoming stayed flat. So here's the bottom line. Wyoming's emptiness isn't a fluke. It's the result of stacked realities. The geography is stunning, but punishing. History is full of missed booms. The economy is reliant on unstable industries. The climate is harsh, and getting harsher. The state lacks big cities to create opportunity and attract talent. And of course, young people keep leaving, creating a cycle of stagnation. That's why Wyoming has held on to its title as America's emptiest state. But here's the hopeful side. Wyoming's emptiness might also be its greatest asset. The state has massive renewable energy potential, especially wind power. Ironic, given how much people complain about the wind. Solar energy is untapped. Tourism and outdoor recreation could grow even further. Remote work, if supported with better broadband, could turn some small towns into digital havens. And maybe, just maybe, emptiness is what Wyoming does best. After all, not every state has to be packed with people. Wyoming offers something rare in today's crowded world: room to breathe, silence to think, and landscapes that remind us how small we are compared to nature. As author Stephen E. Meyer once wrote, "I like the night. Without the dark, we'd never see the stars." Wyoming might never be the bustling hub Denver is, but it doesn't need to be. Its story isn't about what it lacks, but what it preserves. So next time someone asks, "Why does nobody live in Wyoming?" you'll know it's not because the state failed. It's because it chose a different path. Rugged, quiet, stubbornly wild. And for many, that's exactly why it matters.